Hey guys, I'm going to show you how to do a clean install on this Optiplex 7040. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to the Microsoft website, download the Windows 10 tool, media installation tool, and follow the instructions there to create your USB boot stick. And we'll need that here in a minute. And I'm going to show you here on this BIOS setup screen how I'm going to do the install on a NVMe SSD M.2 drive. You can see there, this is the NVMe. And another Optiplex I have sitting beside it, it's the same one. And what I'm going to show you first in the BIOS setup is how normally with Windows 10 the only way you can get that Microsoft created USB stick to install is when you have AHCI set up. And I'm wanting to do a clean install with RAID because it's a little faster. AHCI is for older technology. I like to do the newer, and also it gets some benefits with some of the Intel drivers and software for warning about the health of the drive, and also if you really do want to set up a mirror situation. Okay, I'll let this boot, show you a few things. So this is Windows 10 booting now with the AHCI drive parameter in the BIOS set up. Okay, so if I go look at Device Manager, you'll see under Storage Controllers it has a standard NVMe Express controller. And so what we're going to do is I'll show you how that results after the correct install is performed. Okay, on this this is the Windows 10 latest version here on January 26, 18. Boot USB that was created by the Microsoft Media Creation tool, and we're going to go to some downloads. I downloaded all the Optiplex 7040 Windows 10 drivers from Dell. One of those drivers, which will be done during or after the Windows 10 install, is this driver here, but the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver is also needed to recognize the NVMe drive in the RAID mode. So what you want to do is you want to run this, and you want to choose extract only, and you want to go find that Windows 10 install USB, which I installed here, or letter D, and extract it to D. And you'll notice it creates a folder called drivers. Under that, production. And then you want to go find your OS, which is going to be, for me, it's going to be the 64-bit Windows 10. Just drill down in there. It's telling me it's finished. Okay. Grab all the files in there. And we're just going to go paste them to back up to the root of this boot drive. it's not that you don't have to do this. It just makes it a little easier when you're installing Windows 10 to not have to point to these subfolders to get down in there, and it's kind of annoying. Anyway, so now all those drives are just sitting in the root of this boot drive, which is fine. Okay, so now let's go ahead and restart the computer. And I'll also be smashing F12 on the keyboard here. Okay, now I'm in the setup screen. Go into the BIOS setup. System config. SATA operation. I'm changing it to RAID. Of course, this will make my system unbootable for the current scenario. Apply those changes. I usually uncheck this box here because I don't want custom user settings. I just want it to be global for the BIOS. A couple other things in here. I always turn on smart reporting. Why wouldn't you want that? And of course your UEFI boot. Sorry, advanced boot. You don't want this checked. And you want, oops, sorry, wrong one here. Mouse is kind of flaky. You want secure boot enabled, and you want UEFI here. Those should probably already be checked. Okay, now that we have the RAID turned to on, reboot. Again, smashing F12 here. Okay, now with this USB stick in there, I also notice I put it on the blue port, the left port, which is the USB 3.0, so a little faster. And choose that UEFI, and whatever name of your USB stick is should show up there, and just enter on that. Okay, all the defaults for English, US next, install now. Accept the license, custom install. Let me go back to explain something real quick on this drive. So in your system, if you're doing an upgrade like you have, let's say you have a system that's already has a hard drive in this hard drive bay with the AHCI scenario on that drive, and you want to you're adding an NVMe stick in there to make that your main boot drive with a clean install, but you want to still copy files from your old hard drive over to the new, or you want to use it as a secondary storage drive. Just make sure you unplug the physical hard drive while you're doing this. That way, if you don't do that, there's going to be problems with how the drive is partitioned and how it's selected for boot. So I'd highly recommend just unplug your SATA cables to that hard drive while you're doing the clean install. After you're done, you can hook it back in and use it kind of as a data drive. Okay, back to here. You want to choose this load driver option, because right now it's showing you that it can't find any hard drives, and that's due to the RAID selection in the BIOS. It can't see the NVMe SSD drive. Okay, we're going to just hit it. Normally you have to browse and drill down in that folder, but since I copied them to the root, we should just have to hit OK here. And there it is. It found it, and that's what we want, and just hit next. And this will take a little bit of time. I don't really know what it's doing. I don't know why it takes so long. And I think it's a good 2 or 3 minutes, but we'll just let the camera roll here. Let me sidestep here for a minute. So on this other USB stick here, I've downloaded the Dell drivers, and if you should be familiar with that if you're even watching this video, but what you do is you go to the Dell website, dell.com/support, punch in your service tag, and then you'll get your left side menu here, and you'll select drivers and downloads. And the website is always kind of changing their features and how they get here, but it might ask you, oh, do you want to automatically detect drivers, and it'll ask you to download a small payload to inspect your computer to prove that you got the right service tag, but you just want to bypass that and say you want to do it yourself or do it manually. Then it'll give you this list of all the drivers you can download. And I have downloaded all the appropriate ones that I need, which I will show you once we get booted here. Okay, so it's back. With that driver installed, I can now see the drive. Now, because this is not a brand new drive and I previously had the Windows 10 installed in the AHCI mode, of course it had prior partitions and data on there, but I just want to delete it all and start clean. So I'm just going to highlight each partition here. And when you're deleting this, just make sure if you have another drive in your system, again, it's preferable that you only have the one drive in your system, and you just want to kind of review the sizes. Like, I know this is a 256 gig stick, so I know that I'm deleting this partitions on that not the stick, the SSD drive, 256 gig SSD drive. So I'm pretty confident that that's the partitions I want to delete, obviously because it's the only one too. But I just want to be cautious. Like if you stick your USB drive in there and all of a sudden it shows up as a drive and you start deleting it, well, you might lose some data there. So just delete all those partitions, and then it should be the only drive and unallocated, and that's what you want. Just highlight it and just hit next. And now it should begin the copy process, and I'm going to time this here. Okay, so I'm timing this, and it looks like on the prior load I did, which was Windows 10 with the AHCI BIOS setting, getting ready for files installation took 2 minutes and 46 seconds. I didn't start this timer exactly. It's about 5 or 10 seconds slow to start the timer on this one, so we'll see how close it is. Here's my little cheat sheet I did, so I could see from hitting next and then the steps, how much time every step took. Total time to get up to the desktop was 6 minutes and 30 seconds. That's everything except the Dell right up to the desktop, and then the next step after that would be to manually install the Dell drivers, which we'll go through here in a few minutes. Okay, 80%. So we're time to beat. We're trying to beat that 2 minutes and 46 seconds there. Actually, I told you wrong. So that's the timer was at 2:46, but that includes the first 12 seconds and 23 seconds. So okay, so it's at 2:36 on here. It's a little bit slower, actually. Interesting. I have to try a couple more. Get a benchmark. Okay, so finishing up 3:13. It's about the same. I think it's close to the same within maybe 10 seconds. Okay, we'll restart now. I'll let the camera roll here. You can just skip ahead on the video yourself if you want to skip over the boring parts. But I wanted to keep a good timeline for how long this really took. Also, another thing I wanted to tell you to do is make sure you unplug your network cable. It's just one little trick coming up here to avoid having Windows 10 assume you're connected to the internet and ask you extra questions. Having that cable out will minimize the question asking for the setup. Okay, we're under 6 minutes to get to this point. Just say yes, yes, and skip network for now. And what I do here is I hit Control Shift F3. That way it stays in audit mode and doesn't set up a user. And when you finally get all your drivers loaded and Sysprep the PC, there's nothing that you have to delete, no user accounts that you have to delete on the PC. You can hand it to the end user, and when they first turn it on, it'll behave like a brand new PC. Okay, we just got to the desktop, 6 minutes, 30 seconds, give or take a few, maybe 10 seconds for my slowness to get the timer started. And this is this little window here is because it's in audit mode, and every time you boot it up it's going to present these options to you. Normally when you're all done you would say generalize and shut down and hit OK. We're not going to do that. Every time we restart we're just going to cancel that. Okay, now I'm going to pull out this install USB and put in my driver USB. Okay, and here I have the Optiplex 740 Windows 10 drivers in here, and we'll copy those to just downloads. I created that folder from what I explained a minute ago, showing you how to go to the support site to get those. Okay, done with that. Let's just unplug that. Don't need it anymore. And under downloads, now I have my drivers. I always put a number in front of the file name so I can keep the proper install order sequenced. And just to let you guys see the full file names, obviously this changes over time as they come out with new revisions, but this will get you in the ballpark of what you need. And I install them in order. I've already previously installed the latest version of the BIOS on this computer, and we'll just start with chipset. Oh, let's yeah, we'll just finish up chipset, install. And while it's doing that, I'll pull up Device Manager. Now, prior to installing the chipset, you would have seen about 3 more items exclamationed here. The chipset driver corrects that, and the management engine components will fix those 2 items. And they're corrected. Audio. I'll restart it later. Network driver. Video driver. I always leave that checked. I want to enable Windows Aero desktop theme. Okay, next, and I'll restart this later too. And now, this is the file we extracted prior to put on our boot Windows 10 install USB stick. So those drivers are installed, the low-level drivers, but there's kind of an app that goes along with it, and it's a very does not use a lot of resources to run it. So I'd recommend installing it so that you have access to its functionality. So once we install it, let me back up one sec. On the start menu, notice down here for Intel, there's just a management and security option. Now once we install this, I don't need a desktop shortcut. And I won't start it now. Won't restart now. And what you'll notice is now, under Intel, you have rapid storage technology. And launching that will let you see the drive up here. And if you install a second drive, or you install two more drives or two USB external drives, those will show up here also. You can then grab those and tell it you want to configure those as RAID. The system will let you, if you have a physical drive and an SSD drive, it will let you configure those as RAID. The downside of that is it will perform as fast as the slowest drive. So obviously you wouldn't want to pair a physical spinning hard drive with the SSD, but you could, if you had a 2.5-inch SSD installed, you could pair it with this. Again, this is an NVMe, so you would be slowing it down significantly to the speed of that SATA SSD form factor. And down in the tray, I believe, I think we have to reboot. Let's restart now. Okay. I'm going to show you the device manager. And under storage controllers, you'll see that prior NVMe drivers replaced with this one, the Intel PCIe, which is how that talks to that M2 slot premium controller, and that's how that application software talks directly to it. And the last thing you want to do, plug in your network. And go to Setup, Settings, Updated Security, check for updates. And once this populates with its list, then I'll just tell it to start doing updates, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully I've covered everything, answered. If you have any questions of things I didn't cover, just ask down below, and hopefully this will help you guys out a lot. Thanks for watching.